All right. And so that means my audio should be going over the world.
Anybody on?
No.
Nobody is on Zoom right now.
There's-
Just click record on here, so I record record the cloud.
Okay, and I'm unmuted and I'm switching over to that so you can see.
Thank you. Are we recording?
Yep.
Okay.
Good to go. And on YouTube.
Hi, everyone. Please be advised that on Tuesday, May 21st at 4:30, there will be a strategic and capital planning subcommittee meeting held through remote participation via Zoom. This meeting is being recorded. You can view the meeting live on Medford Public Schools YouTube channel through Medford Community Media on your local cable channel, on Comcast 9, 8, or 22, or Verizon 43, 45, or 47. Since this meeting will be held remotely, participants can log in or call by using the following call-in number and link. The meeting ID for Zoom is 970-7626-6607. Additionally, questions and comments can be submitted during the meeting by emailing Jenny Graham at medford.k12.ma.us. Those submitting must include the following information: your first and last name, your Medford street address, and your question or comment. Our agenda tonight is be it resolved that the Strategic and Capital Planning Committee will meet to review and update the district's capital needs assessment and planning document. Be it further resolved that the subcommittee will devise a process to ensure regular annual maintenance of the plan. Be it also resolved that the subcommittee will provide a report to the full school committee no later than June 10th, 2024. So I'll call the roll. Member Rousseau.
Present.
Member Reinfeld.
Present.
And Member Graham. Present. So 3 present, 0 absent. Here we are. So you can have that back. So I think actually what might make sense is for us to talk about the process first, in terms of like how to ensure that we are doing that we are sort of getting back, I'll say getting back to post-COVID a more routine and I'll say rigorous process around capital planning to try to have like an ongoing roadmap that anticipates what those big needs are, so that we can be communicating with our partners in city government, what those upcoming needs are, what we think that they might be, et cetera. So, and those things for which we would be wanting or needing capital funding to be able to complete the process. So before COVID, there was a process. It has changed over time. So there was a process back right before COVID, I guess I would say maybe in the preceding year, where like a sort of a 4-year chart that looks like this was produced. And it listed each of the buildings and what on a year-by-year basis was on the capital like roadmap for that building, and sort of estimates of what was being accounted for. And then during COVID, our process actually sort of got absorbed into the city of Medford's capital improvement plan, which is this document. And there's a number of things from a school perspective in this document as well. I'm just trying to find the page that talks about some of those things.
And Member Graham, this was produced by the Collins Center.
Correct. Yes. And let's see, we have school this report outlined 27 projects for the schools at a cost of 12.4% of the total costs outlined. Anticipated cost of $60 million and a percentage of total cost being 35%. So, and there's a whole lot of information about what those 27 projects are that were outlined at the time. And I think the time is, I think the time is right for us as a school committee to sort of take back the ownership of tracking all of that. And I think that is true, especially because we now have an electronic ticketing system for all of our like maintenance projects and requests across the district, right? So work orders can be put into like a formal tracking system that I think can maybe help us sort of make light work of what these capital requests are, so that we can then put them on the roadmap. So Dr. Cushing, I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about how that system is working versus like what we used to do, which was a ticketing system of sorts. But via email and much harder to sort of report and track. So what kind of capabilities do we have today?
Yeah, so we now have the system is known as Operations Hero. And it is a full service ticketing system for both custodial, for maintenance and technology if we want. Presently, we're running our ticketing for technology under a separate system. But we're going to see how this system works to be able to merge. But as far as custodial and maintenance, what happens now is we're having principals and assistant principals and directors enter. I was worried about just opening the ticketing system up to every employee in the district, that it would be flooded immediately with everybody's concern from the lowest to the highest need. And I was worried about the ability to filter what was high priority. So we're doing essentially a soft open. We do have about 40 tickets in right now, ranging from roof leaks to fixing broken water filling stations, to a number of other issues that are coming up. We have training scheduled for our maintenance staff, because what's really nice about this ticketing system is as we install new equipment and as we maintain existing equipment, we can put QR codes on them, so the equipment will have a life cycle, so that we'll be able to see the maintenance history of every piece of equipment and every district asset as we move forward. And we will be able to start pulling reports from them. That's one of my trainings that's scheduled for upcoming.
Ask a question.
Sure.
Absolutely.
So, did you not list custodians?
Not yet.
Okay, because they just seem like a group that.
Yeah, we're gonna start with senior custodians, who then can distribute the work to junior custodians and make sure, as their contract states, that it's well organized and distributed fairly.
Not just my experience is that custodians actually run into a lot of things.
Yes. Oh, you mean to enter? Yes,
To
yes,
enter,
we will do that as well. Yes.
Obviously teachers too, but you
Yeah.
know, custodians are in every room all every day, so.
Yep.
Okay, so then would it make sense for us to identify the things that are on this plan that maybe still aren't done and need to be done?
Yeah.
And push them into the system, as well as to go, maybe ask you to go through the list of 27 projects in the city's capital plan and push those in so that we can
Yes.
generate a list. And then, perhaps what we might, so that's like startup, right? So we can get everything sort of pushed into the system. And then I'm wondering if on an annual basis, we set some sort of like timeline or schedule around like, when will we have an annual capital planning discussion? So that this committee sort of has that clear marching order. Maybe we do it later in the evening, so it's not such a like sort of working session, but more of a presentation of what those things are, so the community sort of can understand what those things, what those plans are and when.
Mhm.
And I think my suggestion would be that happen not in May. Second, I know that's not it, but I'm gonna second it. But I actually am almost wondering if we set this up to be like a November, December activity, so that before the halfway point of the year and long before budget and long before free cash certifies, like we are proactively being able to like say and report out what we believe that we need. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. It's also,
Okay.
I wonder if it's this committee, that it would be really, this subcommittee to be really helpful for me and other people working with me on operations to say, all right, when are we going to make asks of this new stabilization fund?
Yeah.
And, prioritization of projects. I know I've presented on safety and security. We all know that our new schools, which we should not call new schools anymore, are now approaching midlife. at 22 and 24
Middle
years
aged.
old and that, right, and I mean, so it's, and so moving forward with various projects, there are certain things like the HVAC projects at the entrance in the Glen, replacing kitchen equipment, various things along those lines, that we just want to make sure that the committee is well informed, but is also approving expenditures. As an example, we have done significant lighting upgrades that as electric rates rise, all right, we're using less electricity, but we also need to pay for those over a 60-month payoff, that's on bill financing. All right, but our usage would be much higher and our costs would be much higher without lowering our carbon footprint. So we've done that at we've done that at the McGlynn, we've done that at the Roberts, we've done parts of that at Medford High School. Even though Medford High School is sunsetting, hopefully, pray, you know, that's still 6 years out.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
for
it's a lot
5
of
years,
electricity.
right, so, but I would like to hopefully at some point present, say, the Brooks and the Missatuck as the last two schools. You as the body have the ability to look at the numbers and give approval, not give approval to these, you know,
Right.
$300,000 projects.
Yep.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
mean,
I-
sorry, go ahead.
No, my question is how this intersects with the building and grounds subcommittee, but
I
I
think
think your
that's a
question
good-
was more directly related to what.
I think that's a good question. Buildings and grounds has historically like done many different things. But in its like last iterations, they were focused more on like community driven, like beautification efforts.
Oh, interesting.
And like the more like tactical day-to-day stuff. So, and that may still be the right thing for them versus I'm almost thinking like this committee, will get together to sort of craft what ultimately, according to our policy, really should be happening at a committee of the whole.
Mhm.
So if we think about like doing our work in October to collect, to make sure that like we have, you know, we have a report out of the ticketing system, we can sort of craft what we think is like the right prioritization and then bring it to a committee of the whole to present that to the entire committee. So we have the entire committee's involvement in that. That might make some sense in terms of like a flow. And then certainly because the whole committee's there, those folks that are on buildings and grounds, if there was something happening in their committee, they could also sort of weigh in and
Because I
shift
assume
the
we don't
plan.
do joint subcommittee meetings,
Usually not.
which I
Yeah.
know that makes the numbers weird.
Yeah.
But also
Okay.
I'm thinking that like, so we as a full committee would set out and put our stamp of approval on the capital improvement plan annually. And, you know, there's a bunch of input before we get to that meeting. You know, we don't need to know about the, like, the paint fixes here and there and the water filter replacements. And obviously, when Dr. Cushing goes through all of the, training on reporting, he'll be able to get us a report that's a meaningful starting place. But that, so that we, as a committee, would approve it, and that the individual items, you know, we would send that over presumably to the city for a request for the funds. They would give us a certain amount, but they would not get to decide the order of that list. Like we've decided this is the order of what we're gonna do,
And this is the request that we're putting
how much
forward.
we want, and you give us as much as you can. And then we, starting at the top of our list, go down. But then each of those projects actually seems like would be things that would go into the Buildings and Grounds Committee to, you know, monitor and check on progress and like, how is it happening? That's just my thought.
No, that makes sense. So the other thing I was gonna say when you said it's time for the schools to take this back and make the decision, absolutely, but I think we need to build into whatever our procedure is. A regular
Like report out.
reporting to the city or coordinate, because we need to be in their plan, in their capital planning.
Yeah.
It's
Um,
just. We
yeah,
should
that
be saying
intersection-
what our
that-
priorities are.
That
in the same-
intersection is a very interesting one because there may be projects that are on our plan that the city in whole manages in every imaginable way. And then projects that we are managing in whole, and then projects where we're both managing it.
Mhm.
So like what it looks like on their plan is an interesting question. Like, I mean, because do we want their plan to just have like a, you know, if it was a pie, like there's a pie slice and it just says schools. Or do we want their pie to have our, you know, like our list may in fact be 100 items long. Their presentation is not intended to be at that level of detail, which is why I like
But
their
if
budget,
they're doing,
schools.
you know, if they're turning all municipal roofs to solar,
Right,
like we want in on that, we've got to be
Right.
part of that.
right.
I think also we also being in on that, I think we also have to make a decision like. We're not just gonna do X with the roofs, no, we want a full roof replacement with full installation. And it will last for another 30
Right.
years.
Yeah,
That's where that's where taking it back is really the
yeah,
I also think that the difference between buildings and grounds and capital planning. Is that capital planning should be big vision. Kind of setting the standard. For where the district needs to go with its about 1.2 million square feet of space over our multiple buildings. And as one example, I was planning to submit a request to CPA to do a historic assessment of the Curtis Tufts to see what that facility would need. Now, given the events of last night and our discussion to co-locate, is that something that we should still continue? But that's something that I see as a capital planning decision. You know, kind of guiding the leadership of the district.
so two things sort of come to mind. I had a conversation with Alicia Hunt last week. And we were talking about this process of recommissioning buildings, which essentially like looks at sort of everything and says like, here's how you restore this building to its like original like purpose and function. And this is what you have to do in order to get there. And eventually the idea is like, we should do that one building at a time in rotation over a number of years. And then no building is ever more than like 6 or 7 years out. And that's enough to like have that sort of big picture point of view. The city has indicated a willingness to do that across this, for all of our outbuildings, not this building, not Curtis Tufts. Right now, Alicia her opinion is that the OPM that they're bringing on to do the Andrews McGlynn project, they are the right people to help us do this too, because of their deep familiarity with the district. And so she was definitely like sort of favorable to working with them to help facilitate that process. But to her point, like when you recommission a building, what you get out of it is a list of like problems to fix.
right. It's not
And-
recommissioned at the end of
Right,
that.
it's
the beginning.
right, it's the beginning of the
It's your
process, right?
to-do list.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically the creation of
get-
your to-do list, but all of those things should feed either work orders for the maintenance team to do because they have capacity to do X or Y or Z, or something that has to go on the capital plan. So that really the output of the recommissioning study should go into the ticketing system so that we have one place for all of this to go. So I think Alicia can be a real ally in that. And she's indicated a willingness to attend meetings, provided that we can like say, hey, this is the meeting I want you to attend, because
Yeah.
she's got a lot on her plate.
That's great news. I like
Yeah.
that. That makes a lot of sense. I also like, you know, if we can do the recommissioning studies pretty much all at once, then we don't end up with a scenario where one school is getting
Something
lots of
different.
lovely things, while there are things that are more serious at other schools that just haven't been put on the list yet.
Right,
And you know, that having all those at once will allow us to prioritize from a district perspective.
Yes.
yeah,
So also not to discount our current OPM. However, the city of Medford has recently contracted with 3 architectural firms for what they're calling house doctor services. And
What's he doing?
say again.
I never even heard these words.
Yeah, and basically they're on-call architectural firms to assist with various things. So, and one of those happens to be the original architect for the 5 schools.
is that HMF8?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And so they're sort of another potential that could be part of the conversation.
Am I wrong to just, just to check me on this, like that any OPM and anybody we hire to do this is gonna provide us a reasonably functioning, the report's not gonna look terribly different from one to the next.
No.
Probably not, no.
And
it could be that BTQ, I think that's their name, does the OPM work and
They're our
they,
designer, JLL is the OPM.
okay.
Yep.
Okay, I thought she was talking about B2Q to actually execute this, the recommissioning study.
I can check with her.
But anyway, we can find that out. I'm not overly concerned about it. The other question I had is, timing wise, like if we were to say our process is like from October 1st to October 15th, we're gonna push out a proactive email to the principals of the buildings to say, if there is something that belongs on our capital plan, like speak now, submit your tickets so that we can catch all of those and categorize them. And then between, late October, maybe late October into November, maybe we'll give ourselves the month of November because it's November and, it's a short month. We sort of meet and put together sort of a starting point. And then in December, one of our meetings becomes, or part of one of our meetings becomes a committee of the whole where we review that. That timing all works in the lead up to like free cash being available if we are dependent on free cash for something. It also predates or precedes our budget cycle.
because some of that stuff will not be stuff that can be waiting for
Correct.
that kind.
Presumably if there's a stabilization fund, you could like tap into that at any time, but also it's not like an endless pot of money. So that prioritization is needed. The one question I have is, where does the CPC time cycle like fall into that sequence? Because the CPC has a standing annual
I'm sorry, what
process,
is CPC?
the Community Preservation
Oh,
Commission.
yeah. Okay.
So they have been integral to like,
No, I know what they do. I'm
like
good
the
there.
playground, McGlynn playground, but all three of the playground surfaces.
Yeah.
I don't exactly know, like, when are their applications due? I would just want us
I thought they were rolling.
to
Yeah,
like,
I did too.
I think there are certain things that are rolling, but I thought there were like rounds. So I would just want to make sure like wherever that fits, like it all fits into this process, because I would hate for us to be like, this is great, and we could get CPC funding and like, oh, we just missed it. I don't want us to like set
Oh,
like
July 8th,
cycle. Okay,
July 8th, round opens, July 31st, eligibility forms due, September 10th, full applications due, October 8th and 22nd, application presentations to the committee. That's for this year.
I'm
Okay.
also
And
submitting an off-cycle application for
And
3 bicycle repair and bike pump stations to be installed at the McGlynn, the Andrews, and the high school.
I love that.
Nice.
In special circumstances, off-cycle applications may be
Yeah.
considered. Applicants must demonstrate an emergent public need and evidence of seeking alternative funding to the current.
So I think this timing works well because we will,
actually sort of no.
we'll finish the budget. We will have an idea. I mean, free cash will have been certified. Anything going into stabilization fund will have been completed by July 1. So we will really be way ahead of the game and like, here's the list of things, and we're just sitting around waiting for, the free cash certification in the city's budget picture to become clear.
Yep. Okay.
In response to your
Yeah.
comment about the principles, and I think we need some threshold guidelines on what constitutes a
Okay.
capital project.
I like that.
Yeah.
I think Jerry could actually really give good information on what constitutes a capital project.
Hi,
Sorry.
Jerry.
Hi, Jerry.
I apologize.
Do you
But
mind
he's
sitting over
provided
here?
me good information.
We have a video
Oh,
right
sure.
there.
Oh, I see.
Well, DESI publishes guidelines for net school spending. And I will refresh my memory on the current guidelines, but typically any project that is over $150,000 per project per school would be excluded from net school spending, which means it wouldn't count towards the required spending to access chapter 70 funds. So it's 100% on the city. So when I was in Chelsea, we tried to put those projects in the capital plan for city-only funding, and then projects that wouldn't meet that requirement or wouldn't meet that threshold would be in the school budget. It's not an issue if you happen to do a $200,000 out of the school budget. It's just wouldn't count towards net school spending at the end of the year. And typically the city is way over net school spending, so it would never, you'd never put your chapter 70 funding in jeopardy by doing that.
Got it.
And then the interesting thing about the McGlynn is that's really two schools, so you
Yeah.
kind of have a $300,000 limit. If you were doing a project, say,
Like the roofs.
HVAC that affected both schools, you could split the cost of that project over those schools. And then that would be true if you had funding to do something over 4 or 5 schools, then you could allocate it for the purpose of the limitations.
Now, because the McGlynn is 2 schools, is that limit in place if we really just do something like in one of the sides? It's just
Yeah,
treated,
it would just apply to one school.
but then the limit's not 300 for that.
It'd be
Correct.
150.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
So I found two other presentations beyond the like 27 projects that are listed here. So in the city's plan. And I just wanted to like run through because they're old, but I don't think that necessarily means they're not,
They're still,
that they're done. So this list it's mostly lighting. So Peter, I think that's a question in terms of
So the lighting.
cafeteria and exterior lighting.
Yep, so so on those, it also mentions hallway lighting in some places. So the entire McGlynn with some spotty areas has had and by spotty areas, I mean like a few offices and a few locations that I'm working with the vendor to have replaced. We have replaced all of the lighting at the McGlynn, the
Okay,
Roberts. And we're currently working on an exterior project at the Andrews and the McGlynn. But all of that has been replaced with high efficiency, 25-year lifespan, no need to replace anything, LED, that both daylight harvest, so they will turn off if it's bright enough, and they also have dimming capabilities, and then automatic off after a set period.
okay, so I just want to finish going through this list.
Yeah.
So the Roberts School exterior lighting, are there exterior lighting needs that have not been addressed?
Nope, it's been addressed.
Okay. And then Missatuck has not yet been
Nope.
done. Brooks has not yet been done.
No.
Curtis Tufts,
Curtis Tufts has been done.
whole building E LED.
I can't say whole building, I know hallways, I need to check on the classrooms.
Okay. So if you can check on that one.
Yep.
Automotive shop LED.
All shops have been 100% upgraded to LED lights,
Okay. Andrews, halls and stairwells
complete.
and whole building LED.
Yeah, I need to check on the classrooms for the
Okay.
Andrews. There's some question there. Because if you visit the Roberts and the McGlynn, and the other schools, the Missatuck, the Andrews and the Roberts, you'll see that what were hanging light fixtures have now been flush mounted, which teachers have reported, the few that I've talked to about it, like, wow, it just really opens up the room. There are still hanging light fixtures in the Andrews, so I don't know if those were just light bulb upgrade and replacements for LED.
Got it. Okay, so you can check on that one.
Yep.
Also on the Andrews School, and this list, by the way, this list is from like 2017, 2018, so I just want to make sure if there's stuff that's still there, we're taking it forward. Andrews School, it says controls upgrade for ADR, and I don't even actually know what that means.
I would have to look
That's
into
a
that.
HVAC thing.
I don't. Let me do a quick.
Automatic dimming, I don't know.
All
Maybe,
day refrigeration, no. Automated ampersand.
I can't look at my computer.
ADR systems automatically adjust HVAC.
Yeah, and I think that control was replaced.
Because of the pandemic.
Oh, that's not us, that's public safety, okay, Andrews. You'll find it funny to know that they said the Andrews HVAC upgrades were going to cost $25,000.
So I also did just share with you, I located, from our previous finance director, Mr. Murphy. He had put together a CIP. And so I've shared that with everybody around this table.
Okay.
But I would say, and this is no fault of Mr. Murphy, but I would say that a comprehensive researching of what things cost, the numbers that are in there, I don't know are accurate.
Okay,
And unfortunately, just in my research on some things, are woefully more expensive.
got it.
I'm so sorry, does anyone have nut allergies?
No,
No, but thank you for asking.
Sorry.
That's very good.
I survived, but
okay, so then the second plan, just to like bring us to current,
This is draft number 3.
yes, draft number 3. 2 air compressors at the Brooks, 5 air compressors at Missatuck, 2 air compressors at Roberts. They all were replaced, is
In the
that correct?
summer of 2019, there was a free cash allotment from the mayor and the city council at the time
Yep,
that allowed for all of that compressor work to be completed.
okay. Andrew's new roof, that actually got done.
So I'd like to qualify new roof.
Yeah.
Because what it was I'll call it a film that was put over
Oh,
the
that's right,
entire
that's
roof.
right.
It's white that helps reflect the sun, but it also extends the life of that roof. And Alicia Hunt has said numerous times that it extends it significantly, and I believe her. But I always question, like, should we consider the R value insulation on that roof as part of, where we move forward?
Okay. McGlynn complex had auditorium seating work for 25,000.
So-
happened, I thought.
I would say that it happened because there really isn't any issue with the seating in there.
I remember that.
But the seating in the auditoriums definitely does take abuse. I think there are about 25 seats in the high school auditorium right now that are damaged and need repair.
Okay. And then at the high school, replace, repair fire alarm ceiling system in 2019.
So I can't speak to whether or not that was done, but I do know that we did significant fire alarm work this past fall. The fire alarm system at Medford High School requires constant attention.
Yeah,
As Member Rousseau signs the warrants, he knows.
okay.
Oh, so much.
And then we had, I'm gonna put security improvements to the side. I know that's an ongoing conversation. The Andrews outside curb repairs, those curbs are still not installed. Is that correct?
So there are some that are just sitting there. There are some that have been done.
Okay.
My whole time on the school committee.
And then there is, an item here for the McGlynn complex, asphalt entire complex, including Andrews side curb repairs. So all of that is still like in progress, right? That's not complete.
I would consider it in progress. Last year, the DPW ground the road down.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was significantly worse than it was. And they did a temporary like paving job, but there's a longer term plan on the city side since the city took that over.
Okay.
Prior to this, that road was the responsibility 100% of the Medford Public Schools, lighting, curbing,
Yeah.
everything.
I think it just changed last year.
Yeah.
We don't have the capacity to manage a road.
Okay, so I'm not gonna worry about some of the later things for high school. McGlynn complex roof rebuild, air compressors and chiller contact compressor, all of that is being handled with this like HVAC project that will go in for the
Correct.
system to be tracked.
The roof rebuild is somewhere,
Yeah.
that's up in the air in question, but what I did notice in one of the documents there from either Collins, when those came out, they suggested a 5-year roof rebuild with one each year. And those plans are at least 5 years old and we have not started.
Done any.
those.
Yeah. So we would have some sort of roof assessment, which, I think we can sort of let recommissioning guide
Yeah,
priority there, which is fine. The other thing that's on here looks like, water heaters at the Andrews.
The water heaters have been replaced.
Okay,
we thought they were gonna cost 80,000. What were they actually?
Yeah.
They
I
weren't,
can't remember what they were, but,
it was another number.
and you know, for full
Much smaller,
disclosure,
I'm sure.
the hot water heater at the Brooks has
Yeah.
failed. It's original to the building.
Mhm.
And we're currently trying to work through what that would take, but I think that we should go, my recommendation is that we go through a formal RFP process. I was seeking an emergency waiver of that, but we're able to mitigate the need for hot water right now. So I think it's in the district's best financial interest to go through an RFP process.
To what extent does water heater failure at the Brooks predict Roberts? It's tough.
Well, they already failed.
They already failed,
Yeah.
okay,
So, from
Because I
what I
see that they're not-
understand.
It was a
Yeah.
prediction, but it already happened.
Yeah.
I see,
So
so the
they-
Brooks
they-
was predicted.
Right.
React.
So they were, those were originally four
Oh,
hundred
yeah,
gallon
just let it
hot
break.
water heaters. Because
Mhm.
there was no way to, if you ever want to take a tour of the mechanical rooms of the district. There's no real way to get things in and out.
Right.
And so rather than doing one 400, there were 290 or 200 gallon water heaters.
The one here is pretty cool. There's stuff that is never gonna be gone until they demolish this building.
I live in an old high school,
Was there stuff of that? Is that stuff still there too? Probably.
I mean, they did the condo conversion in 84.
Oh,
It is, Peter, that could also be for redundancy, you know, in case one fails.
Mhm.
Um,
we'd have some.
which is a good.
Yeah.
Way to go.
so we said CPC applications are like July.
Opens in July, due in September.
Okay,
What was the
I
July
just want to be able to
31st
put
date?
that on our.
That was
plan.
eligibility, so you'll know, you should be submitting a letter before you do a
Oh,
whole.
okay, got it.
But Jenny, do you
application.
remember what the playground surfaces cost? I can't, I mean, I can look it up.
I
I'm
think
just
they
saying,
were-
it was 15,000.
No, I think they were the 120.
Okay, all right,
Yeah, I think they were the
They were-
120.
okay.
Yeah,
Huge.
yeah, they were,
Well, and I know
Not
McLean was gonna be
inexpensive.
500,000.
yeah. And that was, many years ago. Okay, so then I think
It
what,
was, sorry, the surfacing at Roberts was 109,540
yeah,
in CPA
And
funding.
what year was that?
In,
That's
oh, it was
2018.
like early when
Yeah.
we started.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
18.
Wow.
okay, so I think from a sort of process and cadence perspective, and Jerry, like, please weigh in. What we talked about was like a desire to use the ticketing system, to sort of push all of the things into it so that it can be tracked there. And then at the beginning of October, we would send out a reminder to principals that like, we're gonna start our capital planning process for the annual year. And so if they have anything else, they need to like get those things into the system so we can be considering them. And then in October and November, this committee will meet to like make the recommended plan, and then in December, we would have an annual committee of the whole where we talk about capital planning, and that way it sort of predates all things budget,
Right.
and also allows any sort of information that comes out of capital planning that needs to inform the budget to happen. And like, it sort of queues up if there's a free cash need coming, and gets us ready for CPC funding if there is a project that we think needs CPC funding.
And is that the meeting we're inviting Alicia, that's the city of Medford too?
Yes, I think we certainly could invite Alicia I think we
I mean,
should
she can
invite
come
her
and
to
talk.
our subcommittee meeting.
Yeah.
Especially because I think that
Yeah.
is more likely to be happening in her workday, which
Yeah.
might be easier for her.
Yeah.
And then certainly if she wants to come to the committee of the whole. So that's sort of what we're talking about in terms of like,
Yeah.
sort of revising our process. Does that?
Yeah,
Makes
that
sense to
makes
you?
complete sense.
Okay.
You finish up the capital.
And
Like
then you just
end
pull
of
right into it.
February, middle of
Yeah.
March maybe, and then you're
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
into your budget cycle.
okay,
Okay.
perfect. And
I'm
I,
gonna need your notes to write this up.
yes.
Since I couldn't use, this is where the audio is.
And I think that's fine. So I think the next step is that
Such as it is.
we probably can present the process to the committee. I'm happy to write it up after we meet. So that everybody knows what to expect. That is actually something that we do need to do in one of our upcoming meetings in June, because that's what we said we would do. And I think, Peter, I can pass these like old items to you to put into Operations Hero. And then maybe we even like, you tell us when you're ready to meet with like sort of everything that you can see pushed in, and we can look at what that reporting looks like and
Yep.
tweak it even in advance of this next official cycle. So I would be happy to like do that on Zoom over the summer at some point, if there's a time that works for everybody, just so that it happens when things are not quite as chaotic as the beginning of the school year.
We made a to-do list for Peter of things that he was gonna look into.
Yes.
With that, do you need that investigated before?
I don't think we need to investigate it before we tell the committee what the process is, but I think before we meet in the summer, yes. Does that make sense? Okay.
I mean, I feel like
I
I-
would welcome summer meetings on this, just so you know.
Yeah,
And I think I'm nuts, but I,
No, I understand.
well, we do
that.
think you're nuts, but that's
Yeah.
not related.
That's not why.
I certainly have enough information to actually draft a policy, based on repeating it all for Jerry, so now
Yeah.
it's all in my head for sure. And then I can, do we want to have another meeting here, or should I just like,
I don't think we necessarily need to, if you're willing to take a crack at writing the policy on our behalf, I think
Yeah.
that's fine.
because I think that the school handbook policy, like that format feels like that would be good for this as
Yeah.
well. Date ranges, phases,
Okay.
who's responsible. And literally a sentence for each phase is sort of like, why are we doing this? And then bullets about the things that will have to happen, so.
Okay.
Do we need to include any information about the relationship with building and grounds and or the road?
I'll add that in there, sure. I mean, because I think what we thought was, Jerry, was that the buildings and ground would sort of like get the projects to.
Once they are in action, like once they're
in
funded.
action,
Yeah.
Okay.
rather than here or whole committee.
Right, yeah. Yeah, and then, I mean, for some of them, we can these house doctor contracts are available, so we identify a project, we talk to one of those firms, get a scope of work to do the project management, write any kind of construction documents that are needed. So.
Yeah. Do you have?
that would be-
Do you-
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Do you have any, so one of the things we talked about earlier, was,
They do the bidding too. I mean, they'd produce the bid documents for Fiona
nice.
to advertise.
Well, I like easy. Not cheap, but I'm.
Right, I mean, but
Yeah.
that's, what you're gonna hold the contractor accountable, so they have to
Right.
be precise.
So one of the things we talked about was, we're gonna have the school's capital plan. And, the Collins Center document has like just all, I mean, it's separated, but it's like this big mashed pile of capital for the whole community. And one of the things I'm curious about, if you've seen in other places, is like, so we have our capital plan, and then the city has a capital plan, and do we like the budget? Like, the Medford Public Schools budget will just be school department, a number. Is that kind of what you think happens in other communities, where in their capital plan, it says school department and a number?
Yeah.
Or do they have our plan sort of like blown out into
Replicated.
theirs?
Yeah, it would be, if they do it on an annual basis, so there'd be a list of all the city departments, and the school department would be one of them, and it would list the projects that roll up to a total number that's in the city capital plan.
So
And
if
of
we
course,
let
it has to be
schools-
accepted by the city, so they
course,
they
yeah,
have
yeah.
the option to say, we don't have the bandwidth to do it. But that's when we kind of through budget management, if we have sufficient money, at the end of the year, we could maybe accommodate a project to kind of spend down our money that falls through the cracks, or sometimes it's, as you're finding out, by the time you go out to bid, you're $100,000 short. So sometimes it'd be a combination of city operation funds and capital
But
if
the-
needed.
Actual spending and all that, your office is essentially who deals with that stuff, so. Because I'm, for the, I just want to get back to the definition, so. If
Yeah,
it's
I can
actually
email it to you.
capital,
Yeah.
it's not in our budget.
Well, if it can be in our budget, but it's how you report it. So
Okay.
the whole end of year report is designed, well, it collects a lot of financial data from across the state. And then it's also used for compliance for net school spending. So there'll be, DESI publishes on their website every community's compliance with net school spending, and it determines that compliance from the end of year reports. So if we are managing a project and it's over $150,000, there's a, in the account classification system, there's one spot where you put the projects that you can charge to
Got it.
school funding. And then there's another spot where you put the projects that are outside of school funding.
Okay,
And so there's also like large equipment purchases can fall outside of net school spending too.
great.
Uh,
I'm glad I don't have to
but
do
I
this stuff
can-
daily.
Yeah, it just like gets into your muscle memory eventually, if you're around long enough. But I can send you the language that might help you with the policy.
Thank you.
Right? So it sounds like maybe we just need to make a motion to present our policy and process to the school committee, and that member Rousseau is gonna draft on our behalf.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, motion by member
I'll
Reinfeld,
second that.
seconded by member Rousseau. We're in person.
Yeah,
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all those opposed?
there's only three of us, so.
Only three of us, so we're good. Motion passes.
Can I just add a quick update of a major capital project that's going on right now? So the McGlynn Universally Accessible Playground is in the neighborhood of 50% completion. And it's, I hope that, members are able to join one of the two tours over the next 2 weeks. It's really coming out very nicely. It's gonna be a representative project of, I think, what good planning and, good community involvement is. And I know Member Graham came last week, so she can speak if she so chooses. But, it's also been a tremendous learning experience at a much smaller level for working with OPMs, working with contractors, the building process as it relates to how a new Medford High School will come about. Just, the amount of detail that we need to have focused on even the very littlest things is really going to be critical. And I'll just give an example, like alternates, all right? We need to make sure that, like, if we're married to something, then there is no alternate, and be prepared to spend for that if it comes back at a higher price, or understand like what the alternates are. There's really nothing that's disappointing in the McGlynn playground. It's just those types of alternates coming through. But
Is it worth making a presentation on this to the MSBA building committee or not yet, or, I mean, I know,
Not yet.
I know you
Eventually,
did
yeah.
you did the podcast.
Yeah,
Medford Bites podcast about this.
yeah, I did see that she did that.
Yeah, I didn't listen yet,
But, yeah, and I actually got to tour the playground last week, and it was awesome.
I'm
So
sure.
I believe
So
I'm
cool.
signed up for
I am
this
as well.
Thursday,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
I'm waiting for the official
Come on,
calendar.
you're good. If for some reason we have,
Lisa just said she was gonna send one, so,
Okay.
but it's
Yeah.
in my calendar. I'm skipping another meeting for it. 'Cause sounds great.
Sounds way better than whatever meeting that was.
Yeah. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
By Member
Second.
Rousseau, seconded by Member Reinfeld, all those in favor?
Aye.